Good afternoon to all of you. I'm Snehlata on the behalf of Faculty of Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. Today, second day of the Valued course, we have a great personality, Muhammad Dr. Chavez sir, and he has a extraordinary speaker, and yeah, he going to explain about the introduction of human rights. So today is the second day of validated course, so I welcome Dr. Muhammad Chavez sir to explain the validated course and explain the topic introduction of human rights and its evaluations. So welcome, Muhammad Chavez sir.
Am I audible? Am I audible? I request to my technical staff kindly share my screen. I hope everyone could see my screen. So, myself, Dr. Muhammad Chavez, Assistant Professor in Political Science in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science, Integral University, Lucknow. Today, we have a lecture series, starting of the lecture series, in which we will cover the unit one, in which we cover in the first lecture meaning, nature, and scope. And our value-added course has started from yesterday, 9th of May, which will be continue till 24th of May. And the title of our value-added course is Human Rights: A General Perspective, in which we will cover 5 units in this syllabus. I hope everyone should have that syllabus by which you can take help, and you will be able to complete the assignment and your regular attendance on the course. So today I am starting first unit, in which we are covering the meaning, nature, and scope of human rights. And let's have a brief introductions on the topic of the human rights. And obviously, we are very familiar with this word. We have we have listened, we have heard about this word many times. We have read this word multiple times. We have seen this word on a social media in a number of times, in videos, in memes, in images, and many lectures you have heard about this word, that human rights. And you are also fed up to listen this word, because I know I'm very fortunate, and you are also fortunate, that being a human being, you have all the rights, almost you have all the rights, you are enjoying human rights, because we are very fortunate enough that we are living in the world largest democracy in the world, and we have the longest document, which we known as the constitutions. So, in which part third of the Indian Constitution talks about uh, in detail of our fundamental rights, which is also included in our human rights, and by which by our Constitution, our rights are protected protected, and judiciary are very empowered and very powerful enough to protect the rights of Indian people from making the importance of human rights. Why do we need? There is only one title of human right on which we can introduce or validate course. But you will definitely come to know. You will definitely thankful to the Department of Humanities and Social Science and for which I congratulate to our HOD, Professor Zeva for rightly and timely introduce this value-added course and with having a beautiful and with having a very important concept of our times, which is the human rights. So, as far as the recent literature is concerned, and we are experiencing on the one hand that we are very privileged enough to having many things. We are entitled to do many things. We are having a constitution which is protecting our rights. But on the other hand, we are also experiencing what many commentators in respect to the human rights has called that the end of human rights. In this 21st century, we are talking about, we are seeing such kind of the commentaries. We are familiar with such kind of the comments, such criticism regarding the human rights, that we are living in the age of the end of the human rights or the end times of the human rights. And the heyday of human rights seem to be over, and courts such as the European Court of Human Rights now attract fierce criticism from across the political spectrum, and when they find that acts of national government violate human rights. And obviously, you might have also familiar with the European Union, which is one of the efficient, which is one of the powerful regional organization that world ever has, which create a such kind of a supernatural system in which many important institutions have been created for the multiple kind of words, in which one of the important organ or institution, which is European Court of Human Rights, is uh, is probably one of the most important functions to deliver in the context of the human rights. And obviously this European of Human Rights is extending what Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 committed to promote the rights in the world. And as I say to you that we are very fortunate that we have very largest democracy along with a longest constitution that protects and that talks very much about the rights and duties, immunities of the pupil. But let's get familiar with the existing realities of human rights in our world. That might shock you. That, oh my God, because we are only familiar with the surroundings we live in. We are only familiar with the friends we know. We are only familiar with the information we have, or we come to know by the source of the social media or any other means. But we might not aware many shocking and many depressing informations which we have also lived with it. Let's have a brief introductions or brief information about the existing realities which covered by the different kind of institutions. And after knowing these realities, you will come to know that how much the importance of this value added course is, and how much this course will be beneficial for you in your near future or in your student and academic life. First of all, and obviously everyone has have lunch today, and obviously we have many things to eat. We have always food available to eat. But on the other hand, a very depressing picture also constructed when we come to know that 811 million people in the world still go hungry. They do not have food to eat. They still waiting for the food to eat. And this 881 811 million people constitute about 9.9% of the world's population. And secondly, about 150 million of people of the world are homeless. We all have all the participants are having the shelter, and we have all we have the houses to live. We have home to stay and to protect from the the rains and many kind of the difficulties. But there are 150 million people who do not have their home. They are homeless. Another important fact: more than 120 countries have faced torture and ill treatment. Many countries, not only many, but majority of the countries do not treat their people fairly, do not treat their pupil according to the established procedure under the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948. About 113 countries arbitrarily restricted the freedom of expression in the press, and which China is one of the most prominent country which is engaged in the violations of the human right, which is the freedom of expression in the press. And now we have a freedom that we can post many things on the social media. We are having the multiple number of language in language newspapers by which we are familiar with the day to day activities. And we have many sources by which we collect the information. We come to know what what happened in our country, in our city, in our world. But 113 countries restricted such kind of the freedom of expression in the press. More than 150 human rights defenders worldwide have lost their lives. It is shocking to know you that those who are put danger their life for the welfare of the people, for showing the concern of the rights of the people, are sacrificing their life. And in the 150 human rights defenders have sacrificed their life just for the welfare, just for showing the concern, just for showing the concern that everyone should have a certain amount of right, because they are human beings. They are not part of the different state, but they are a human being. They are a part of this universe. They are a part of this planet, because on this planet we are all one way or other way are connected from each other. Okay. And another important fact that more than 55% of the countries in the world have conducted unfair trials. It is one of the important right that nowadays that crime is being conducted unfairly. Let's move forward. About 152 millions. Another important fact in front of your screen, that about 152 millions of children are engaged in the child labor. You are very lucky that we are very lucky that we enjoyed many things in our childhood. We never going through such kind of the treatment, such kind of the difficulties, such kind of the harsh time, such type of severe situation in which we forced to commit, we forced to act such way, or we forced to act in engage in, to extend or engagement in a such kind of the activities, which you hardly imagine that being a children, these kind of activities should not be performed by the children. Okay, and according to the international labor organizations, that and on the other hand, the youth for human rights, it is also one of the organization which works for the welfare and which works for the human rights. And this organization reported that around 246 million in the world are engaged in the child labor forces. Very shocking news. And if we calculate another way, that one child out of four child in the world are engaged in the child labor. And we are fortunate enough that it is mentioned in our constitution that according to the article 44, the child labor has been suspended, child labor has been prohibited in our constitution in India. Another shocking fact, obviously, particularly for the women, more than 650 million women today got married before they were 18. It has been already mentioned in the various documents, various covenants, various kind of the document, particularly the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, that women should not get married before the a particular age. And obviously 18 is the common age to get married, but it is remorse, it is a matter of the remorse, and it is a matter of the regret that still we have 650 million women who got married before they were 18. Another important fact is that throughout the world, one third of women and girls experience some form of the violence during COVID-19, and we have experienced, we have faced a very one of the hardest times in our history, in our life, which is COVID-19, and which is pandemic. And during pandemic, we have experienced, we have faced many difficulties. We have also lost our our companions of our planets. We have also lost many many partners, many friends. uh, Many have lost their parents, many lost their brothers, many lost their sisters. And on the other hand, in this harsh realities of the death, there is also the a number of incidents of form of violence, and in which one third of the women and girls experience some form of violence during COVID-19. And the kind of trend which is going on in this world, and the kind of situation in which the survival of the people become day to day difficult because of many kind of difficulties, because of the economic struggle. So some of the institution, particularly the global trend indicator, says that roughly 20% of the world's population will be live in a slum by 2030, and 2030 is very near to us. We have to think over it. We have to work over it. Otherwise, or we have the 20% of our populations will live in a slum area, and which we really don't want to see them in living such a situations. Another important fact covered by the UNICEF, that we have lost 2 million children in the past decade armed conflict. Obviously, we have very hatred towards the violence, and obviously, the world has witnessed the mass level of the human rights violation, mass level of torture, mass level of loss of lives during the two major world wars which happened in the 20th century, First World War and Second World War. And we have lost around 12, more than 12 million people in these two world wars, including civilians, army, armed forces. And now we are living in a 21st century. Obviously, as we have our family that the war has almost gone. The kind of war which already happened in the past, like for two major world wars, we have not familiar, we are not lively experienced in the situation of war in our time. But you will come to know, you will be shocked to know that we have lost 2 million children in the past decade armed conflict. Within a period of 10 years, we have lost 2 million children in the civil war situations, or in the armed conflict, or in the interstate conflict in this world, in which the war has become irrelevant. Another important fact regarding this human rights, that a large percent of women population engage in labor force market. And you might have seen these kind of the engagement of the women in the construction sites, or in the engagement of the labor, which you would not want to see them in a such kind of the labor forces. But the harsh reality is that a large percentage of the women population engage in labor forces because they want to survive, because they don't have enough resources to satisfy their needs. They don't have enough money to survive or to satisfy their day-to-day needs. Another important fact: more than 27 million people are enslaved in the human trafficking and trade around the world. 27 million. They are forced. They do not have human rights. They do not have freedom. Do not have freedom to think. They do not have freedom to express. They do not have freedom to movement. They are enslaved by some bad people and in the human trafficking trade around the world. And this kind of the trade have captured, had captive, make captivity for the 27 million people in the world. So I hope you are now familiar that how much importance of this value added course in your life, and how much is it timely for the introductions of for the introduction or the launching of this value added course. And before understanding the human rights, we should know a basic information, basic understanding. What is right? What do you understand by right? So, a right is to get one's due, to get what is due to someone as a human. Everyone should have right, not because they are Indian, they are Chinese, they are Russian, they are Americans, they are Germans, they are Slovenian, they are Australian. No, everyone should have right because they are human being. They are a companion. They are a partner of us in this planet. They are a part of this planet. Therefore, in one way or other way, we are connected from each other, because we are living in a time of globalization. Because we are talking about the global village, and village has a connectivity. Village in the village, we see that people have very close relationship with each other. So, such kind of the rights are important for the survival, for the development of the human being, and obviously, individual or as a member of the group, we should have certain rights. For example, right to vote, right to speak, right to avail healthcare, okay, right to food, right to shelter. These kind of the rights are important for our survival, for our development, for the realization of the existence of us as a human being. However, right do not prescribe obligations. For example, if I have right, but it doesn't mean that I have to do it, or I force by someone to do this thing. We are free, either do it or not to do it. We are not obliged to do what we are entitled to do. For example, it is your right to vote, that everyone after crossing or after passing the age of the 18, everyone has right to vote according to the constitutions. But you are not obliged, you are not forced anyway to do this thing, because you have to make your decision own, either you want to cast the vote or not. Similarly, rights does not prescribe or does not force someone to obligate for the actions or for any other kind uh, of treatment. Another, the rights are those claims. So, what are rights? Rights are those claims and demands of an individual or group of individuals to good life. For example, Aristotle. I hope you are familiar with the name of the Aristotle. He is not only the father of the political science; he is also known as the father of the natural science. And Aristotle says that human is a political or social animal. He cannot live without the society, or anyone of us claim to live without the society, to live without the pupil. He is either beast or god. He is above the humanity or the below the humanity. He cannot be human, because our existence is for the living together and to extend and to recognize the rights of each other. Similarly, so he has believed that there is a need of good life, and thus the institution which we are formed, whether the family, whether the commune, whether the state or society, every institution should aim to promote the good life for the people. And for attending the good life, there is a need of a certain amount of right for the welfare, for the realization, for the happiness, and for the living of the people in the society. Now come to the that after got familiar with the basic understanding of the rights. Now we are moving to what are human rights. How human rights are different from the basic rights, the moral right or the legal right, or the economic right or the political right or the civil rights. Human rights are different. In terms of the life science, humans are primates of the family of Homo sapiens, wherein they belong to the genus Homo and species sapiens. We are Homo sapiens. We are different from the a million of species existing in this planet. We are very special. इस्लाम में कहते हैं अशरफुल मखलूकात. Okay, and we are very special species. Therefore, we are called as Homo sapiens, because we have the ability, we have some qualities, we have some characteristics that makes different us from the rest of the living beings. So, in history, human beings have described as a civilized living being capable of the communicating with the help of the language. And those who started the system of the living in an organized society, peaceful coexistence is the basis of our life, and thus it is important to have respect as well as protect the life of each other. As human, we can think and articulate thought. We also have a sense of right and wrong. Obviously, this is such kind of the quality, as I earlier said, that we have such kind of the qualities. We have the sense to differentiate between right and wrong. We have moral values that makes a different that makes us different from the rest of the living beings. So it is our conscience that to make difference between the right and wrong. And obviously, human being may be different in color, gender, caste, size, and even shape, but still, in spite of these kind of the existing differences, we are known as a human, and we should have, on the basis of this human, we should have certain amount of basic human rights. So, human rights as a term is most commonly used are a basic entitlement bestowed upon each and every human being by virtue of birth. We do not, for the human right, we do not need society, we do not need family, we do not need any authority that bestowed, that grant, that issued certain kind of right to us. No, we are born with these kind of the rights. This is our right. Everyone should protect it, everyone should respect each other human right, because there is no authority except the god, Ishwar, Allah, Bhagwan. So these are the authority, which is supernatural authority that provide us these rights, which is inalienable, which is indestructible, which is immutable, which is indivisible. These rights cannot be and by the wish of any authority, by the wish of the state, by the wish of any organizations. No, no one can restrict these human rights, because these rights are not conferred by any authority. These are conferred by the supernatural forces, by the God. We born with these rights. So the underlying idea of such right is to ensure that all men, women, children are treated with respect, with dignity. For example, as human being, it is our birthright that all of us should be given equal treatment, should not be discriminated on any account or due to differences of the religion, whether Hindu, Muslim, Christians, Jewish, or any other religions, or any other mainstream religion, should not be discriminated on the ground of someone's religion and someone caste, someone class, someone color, someone economic status, someone gender, whether man or women or any other sex, transgender or LGBT. We, as a human being, should not have any kind of restriction over the enjoyment of the certain amount of rights. Anything else, either by the state or the community, or for that matter, the family. And this is because each person is special with their own individual talents and abilities. Because everyone has such kind of talents and abilities provided by the supernatural forces. They are born with a special amount of talent, with a special amount of abilities, with a special talent. But these talents and abilities, characteristics, features, the color of the skin, the height of the pupil, does not mean that you are superior from anyone else. You cannot make inferior just because you are having a fair color of your skin, you are having a more money than others, you are having a good social status. You cannot make any other inferior than you. So these things do not make you superior, because these are the material existence. And the human right, humans are the natural existence. So we are the natural existence, we are living being, we are born with certain amount of rights. Okay, so these right guarantees our dignity as human being. It is precisely for this reason that human rights are sometimes called natural. Therefore, as I says, that these rights are natural. There is, and there will be no authority who provide this right. But these authorities are entitled, these authorities are responsible to protect these or human rights. And therefore, we have seen that how the modern state have constitution, and all the constitution have the criteria, have the detailed discussions over the having of the fundamental right, which are essential right for the survival of the human being or for the survival of the citizen of the country. Like we have from the article 12 to the article 35, under part 3rd of the constitution, we have 6 category of rights. In this article, we have also the provisions that how these rights can be protected from the judiciary. So our judiciary has empowered by the constitution to protect our fundamental rights, which are also considered as human rights. Another in this regard of the constitution, the human rights, we have certain definitions that need to go with it. For example, William Edmondson says that human rights recognize extraordinary, special, basic interests, and this sets them apart from rights, even moral rights, generally. And similarly, Richard Fact is one of the prominent thinkers in the context of the human rights and international relations. And he says that human rights are a new type of rights. New type of right. Why? Because it was considered, it was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly, a large document. You know what? The landmark decision in the context of the human rights, Universal Declaration of the Human Rights by the United Nations in 1948. It was published in 400 languages. That makes is the most translated document the world ever has. And according to the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that human rights as right derived from the inherent dignity of the human person. Inherent dignity, which human born with it. Nobody gave this right to the human born with it, right from the inherent dignity of the human person. And human rights, when they are guaranteed by the written constitution, are known as the fundamental right, because the written constitution is the fundamental law of the state. And since we have 193 or 194 members of the United Nations, all are bound on the charter or UN charter, and so they are also obliged to promote and to extend the conditions, the requirement for the realizations, for the implementation of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. Okay, let's have a brief evaluation and development of human rights, because how this concept of human rights evolved. Sorry, it is not evaluation, it is evolution. Uh, there is a typo error. So you will have the separate lecture on this evaluation and development event, right? I just briefly mention it in front of your screen, that from which period we have the consciousness to promote, to thinking, to considerations about the human rights. So in 600 BCE, King Cyrus the Great, king of the Persia, recognized the basic concept of human rights by freeing slaves. Okay, so another important part, Magna Carta 1215, adopted by the United Kingdom, in which King John adopted certain amount of the conditions, in which they mentions, they promoted, they created certain kind of the rights by which by those rights which are inalienable even by the authority of the king. Similarly, Bill of Rights, another important American Declaration of the Independence in 1776. French Revolution is one of the landmark event in the context of the recognition of the basic rights, because the people of the French, the people of the French people came out from their houses, and it was a mass level of the protest. It was a revolutions against the arbitrary decision of the state at that time, Napoleon Bonaparte, and how that kind of the one man rule, how that kind of the arbitrary rule of the state imposed or violate the rights of the people in France in 1789, and how this revolutions got its fruit under the introductions of the Bill of Rights and the citizens in France, and which become the symbolic in the context that we should have the liberty, equality, and fraternity. And this has become the symbol of the people of the France. This has also uh, another important, as I already mentioned, that Universal Declaration of the Human Rights in 1948. And you know what? Why these? Why there was a need to adopt such kind, to make such kind of this step? How United Nations General Assembly adopt this resolution to introduce Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. As I already said to you, that how our history is also witnessing a mass level of the human rights violations, and particularly in the interstate conflict, in the armed conflict, in the world wars, humans lost their lives innumerable. So in a great number of the people have lost their life during these kind of armed conflict and world wars. And in that context, and obviously you are also familiar with the rule, and with the unfair rule, with the kind of naive, with the kind of the notorious ideology prescribed by the Nazis under the Hitler, who murdered about 2 million people, 2 million Jewish people. That was also a landmark in the context of the human rights violation. So, in the context of these kind of the incident of human rights violations, the United Nations General Assembly in 1948 adopted the resolutions and created a document of the covenant, in which we have 30 articles that mentions that have detailed about a considerable amount of the rights for the existence, for the maintain the dignity and the respect of the human being in this world. Another important contest in 1993, UN also declared the elimination of violence against the women, because women is one of the main victims for the human rights violation. As you might have familiar with the treatment of the women in the history, that how in even in the 20, in the end of the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, women started to get the right to vote. Did not have right to vote. Women did not have the civil and the political rights that now have in our country, on our world. So women were also a major victim in the of the human rights violations. This this is the list of the important thinkers who deliberately contribute in the context of the human rights. That first of all, the social contract theorists, the participants who are not belonging to the political science or the sociology are are getting difficulty to understand who are social contract theorists. But these are the group of people: Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and the Rousseau, who gave important theory in the context of the existence of the human and state. They change the relationship between the individual and the state. They change the criteria of the powers. Earlier, it was the state who are most powerful in the world, but these contractualists these contractuals reciprocate the structure of the power. They says no. They said that individual should have power instead of the state, because it is the individual, it is the humans, it is we who created this state for the welfare of us, for fulfilling our needs, for the attainment of the certain objectives. Similarly, Immanuel Kant, having one of the important contribution in the in the human right, Immanuel Kant says that humans should be treated as an end, not as a means to certain end. If you are having having a many laborers in your company or in your factory or in your any business, you should not treat themselves as a means to your earning profit. You should treat themselves as an end. You should have in mind that these laborers are integral part of our community. These are also human beings. So with the development of us, with the benefits of us, their benefits also needs to be concerned in the minds of the owner of the organization, of the business owner. Another important, Thomas Paine, who wrote the Rights of Men. Mary Wollstonecraft, very important in the context of the women rights. She said that women were treated, ill-treated, unfairly treated, and their rights has been violated for the centuries, because they do not have even the educational right. People, and particularly men, did not make concern, did not give much importance or to the education of the women in our country. Therefore, our women are very backward, are socially, economically disempowered, and they do not enjoy they do not enjoy the human right and the right as much as men enjoy. So, for in order to properly extend the rights, the criteria of the right, women should be equally participated in the enjoyment, in the exercising of the basic human right, basic rights in the state. So I'm not discussing each and every one. You should have this screen. You can go through with these by these important thinkers. You will have lots of things to know that how these rights are important in our life, and particularly those who are belonging from other department. These you may go with through these thinkers, the writing of these thinkers, and you will come to know that how much rights are for men or women are important, children and transgender are important in the context of the realization of the human rights in our society. Again, I have already discussed it, so I should skip it. So how many rights we have under the UDHR, Universal Declaration of the Human Rights? So there are 30 articles which talk about the basic human rights. So the compositions of these 30 articles talks about a certain amount of right. I and mostly many thinkers have classified these rights into the categories, into the families. So we have also classified these rights. So the scope of these right, you will come to know that what is the scope of the human right. The scope of human right, that how how it was begin with the end of the slavery, because people was enslaved in our history, and in slavery was justified in our society, and people's economic or social status was judged as per the position of the number of the slaves. So it was a ill treatment, it was unfair treatment, it was not recognition, equal recognition of the human right, because people were differentiating, people were make distinctions on the basis distinction for the rights on the basis of the social and economic status. So it was the beginning with the end of the slavery. You are familiar now with that, how king of Persia freeing the slaves and establish the human rights. And obviously the phenomenal speech of Abraham Lincoln at the Gettysburg talks about that, how he has will to end the slavery, how he wanted to treat the blacks and whites equally. So these kind of the events were landmark in respect to the human rights. And now we the scope of the human rights go with it, and the area and the dimensions of these rights have been extended. And in the 21st century we are moving toward the fourth generation of the rights. We have covered we have covered first generation of right, in which uh, we have the right towards political and civil right. We have then second generation of right. We have third generation of right, and now we are moving towards the fourth generation of the right. Fourth generation of right are purely the rights for the purely the claims of of the people of the 21st century, in the era of the globalization, in the era of the internet, in the era of the artificial intelligence, in the era of the widespread informations. There are certain rights which need to be covered, which need to be which need to be have for the pupil to realize their human rights. So these six families are first of all, security is very important. Obviously, if we the permanence of the threat, the permanence of the danger, that does not allow people or any human to enjoy any amount of the right. So first of all, it was laid down in the Universal Declaration of the Human Right that security is the foremost important right for the existence of people. If people are not protected from their life, people are not protected from their murder, from torture, from rape, from massacre, from mass level of the human rights violation in the context of the death. And if people are not secure in their life, how they would supposed to have a number of rights. So security right is the foremost important. People should be secure. People should be prevented, protected by the state, by any authority, so they will have more rights to enjoy. Secondly, liberty rights. After security right, people should have certain amount of liberties. What kind of liberties they should have? They should have liberty of belief. They should have belief of expressions. They should have rights to join any association, any political party, any association, irrespect, except these associations do not indulge in any kind of the crime activities. So people should have a right or assembly. They do not force to live in isolation. They do not force to live in a jungle. They are entitled. They should have right. They should allow to assemble, to make relation with the people. They should have also allowed to move from one country to another country, to move from one place to another place. Another political rights, obviously. Now we are having about more than 200 countries, in which majority of the countries have democracies. We are having a largest democracy in the world. So if people do not have certain amount of rights, certain amount of the political rights, the democracy would become meaningless, would become irrelevant. There would be no use of democracy if people do not have right of communications, if people do not right have vote. If we do not have vote, how can we able to elect our government? So these kind of the political rights are important for the welfare of the people, for the realization of the human existence. Another important, due process of right. Obviously, as I already earlier said to you, that we live in a society. Obviously, when people live in a society, it is already in a nature that to having a disputes, to having a many misunderstanding, to have disputes, and to have fighting. And in these kind of the misunderstanding, this kind of the disputes might might extend in a kind of the crime. So if someone in the society committed a crime or engaged in a criminal activity, they should have a due process of right. If someone is engaged in a steal or the robbery, it doesn't mean that they should not have right to defend. They should not have right to change their behavior. They should not have right to lead once again a fair life, or the lead a respectable and the dignified life. So due process of right is important. Another, equality rights. And as I said to you, that how we have focused, we have more emphasized on the human rights, in the human rights, about any kind of the differences. We should not appreciate any kind of the entertainment regarding the differences on the basis of the religion, caste, or any other differences, any other gender differences, any social economic status. These kind of the any kind of the differences should not be allowed, should not be become barrier in the enjoyment, in the exercise of the human rights of the people. So there should be a equality before law. So for this, the constitution established already that everyone is equal before law. Everything which is mentioned in the constitution is for everyone. So if you are a citizen of this country, if you are a citizen of the India, so from the article 12 to the article 35, like anyone else, you will also have a certain six categories of right you can also enjoy. If anyone of in our society violate your fundamental right, you can also reach to the court for the protection of your right. Six categories, six family of the right: welfare rights. Obviously, Now we have seen that how much inequalities we have in our society. We have equality, many inequalities. Another kind of the equalities which is increasing nowadays, which is socio-economic inequalities. People are treated on the basis of their social status, on the basis of their economic positions, on the basis of their how much money they have. So these kind of the differences, these kind of the positions, these kind of the entitlement do not allow anyone to discriminate against anyone, against the any human. So for this, there should be there should be a concept of the welfare right. Welfare right. Who will responsible for the welfare right? Obviously, the organization NGOs are working in the extension of the welfare right. Many NGOs are working to provide the welfare right for the people, because many NGOs like CEDO, uh, like uh, like uh, like uh, uh, like uh, like many organizations who are working under the guidance of the United Nations, like UNICEF, who are engaging in providing the food to all, to the protections of the women right, to helping women in order to avoid the incidence of the domestic violence. Many a number of organizations are also working in the welfare rights of the transgender people, in the LGBT rights. So these are the welfare rights which needs a organization or the state to promote these rights in order to avoid such kind of the a large differences socio-economic socio-economic grounds. So what is the what is the nature of the human rights? Let's take a very important story in this regard. You will come to know about what do you understand by the nature of the human rights. So nature of the human rights, for example, let's imagine one day, this is a story. One day Rohit, whose name is Rohit, a 10-year-old boy, was playing in the field. होता है अक्सर कि बच्चे एक दूसरे को देख के खेल रहे होते हैं, जैसे मतलब आपने हम लोग को भी कभी कभी लगता है कि भाई कुछ लोग फुटबॉल खेल रहे होते हैं तो हमेशा अच्छा लगता है कि चलो हम भी खेलते हैं जाकर, या फिर कुछ लोग क्रिकेट खेल रहे होते हैं तो हम लोगों को लगता है यार मेरा भी मन कर रहा है देखते हैं. Similarly, Rohit, a 10-year-old, was playing in the field. Another 12-year-old, whose name was Prakash, was watching him from the balcony, and he could not resist himself and found himself running towards the ground to play with him, with the Rohit. And Rohit and his friend refused to play with him because he was a servant in a Rohit's house. रोहित के घर में वो बच्चा जो था, जो अपने आप को रोक नहीं पाया, जो प्रकाश था, वो नौकर था रोहित के घर में, इसलिए रोहित और उसके घर में उसके दोस्तों ने प्रकाश को खेलने से मना कर दिया क्योंकि वो नौकर है उसके घर में. सो प्रकाश सेट इन द कॉर्नर, उसने क्या कहते हैं वो कोने में चला जाता है एंड प्लेड बाय हिमसेल्फ. लेटर व्हेन ही रिटर्न बैक होम, जब लोग घर में जाते हैं तो रोहित वाज इमीडिएटली गिवन अ ग्लास ऑफ मिल्क. हिज मदर केम with a glass of milk and gave Rohit to drink. And on the other hand, Prakash was scolded for not doing the household work on time. And by this story, you are getting that familiar that how much differences we have, how much you can observe these kind of the incident, and how much you can observe the differences made by the pupil, and how much by this incident how much people got discriminated. So, how often have you come across such a scene where a person is deprived of the dignity and the care that each human being has a right to? So, such a right, which is a basic to a human existence, is a human right. So, nature of human rights. What is the meaning of the nature of the? What do you understand by the nature of human right? The fact that nobody gives us this right, nor can anyone take away these rights. Human rights are said to be inalienable. No authority can snatch these rights from you. Human rights are also recognized as a being universal. Whether you are a citizen of India, whether you are a citizen of the China, whether you are a citizen of Russia, whether you are a citizen of the United States of America, these rights are essential. These rights are the universal. Where you will go, where you will go in any country, you are a part of this planet, and because of this, because the part of this planet, there is a concept of providing the certain amount of human rights by in every country, because these rights are universal. These are not having the barriers of the borders. They are interrelated. They are indivisible. These are the nature of the human rights. So this means that they belong to everyone irrespective of the one's religion, community, caste, and class, gender, and age, social or economic status. Furthermore, respect for civil and political rights. Respect for civil and political right cannot be divorced from the economic, social, and cultural. So, so what is the meaning of the nature? Nature is an innate quality. Okay, so innate quality of the human rights. Innate quality of the human rights is that human rights are essential and necessary, without which we cannot we cannot survive. The survival of the human being cannot possible without certain kind of human rights. So human rights are essential and necessary. Human rights support and advocate human dignity. You have to treat, you should treat other human, not because of anyone social and economic status, not because of someone citizenship, not because of someone whether he is a he is a he is a fair, or he is a white or black. You should consider him as a human being, and you should maintain his or her dignity. So human rights are also universal. Human rights are inalienable. Human rights are dynamic. Human rights are essential for the gratification of the aspirations. That obviously such an, for example, if we go through that the global index on the hunger, that as I mentioned in the beginning, that more than 800 million of the people do not have rights, and right to food is a basic right. And when someone eat food, they somehow gratify, they want to live, they have the aspirations to further promote and to further enjoy the human rights. So human rights are essential for the gratification of the aspirations, aspiration of the human being, aspiration of the contribute in the extension of these rights, contribute in the recognition of the humanity, dignity and the respect of the others. Human rights are never absolute. What does it mean? If you have human rights, it doesn't mean you are empowered to do anything. Your human rights should not be exercised in a way that can be a part of the violation of the other human rights. So you have human rights, similarly other have also human rights. So you have to exercise, you have to enjoy, you have to consider your right in a context of the same rights possessed by the others. If you are considered that these rights are only having by me, and I have to exercise my human rights in a way irrespective of the violation of the other rights, these rights cannot be called as a human rights. Last but not least, human rights restrain state power. Obviously, as I said to you, that if we go through the history of the human rights, you come to know that how the consciousness and the awareness of the human rights promotes or enable human being to restrain an excessive power of the state, by which you can fully realize fully realize your human existence, because in the absolute power of the state, you cannot realize yourself. You cannot realize yourself in the absolute power of the state, because Obviously these rights are important, but who will protect these rights? Obviously in society everyone does not have the consciousness, have the thinking, have the considerations for the other rights too. So they have also bad elements in the society, or any authority can torture, can snatch, can attack on your human rights. So in this situation, in such situation, who will protect your human rights, who will restore the condition of the human dignity and the respect for of human? So, according to the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, every individual and every organ of the society shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedom, and by progress measure national and international to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance. Besides, this provision means that not only the government but also civil society organization, business, individual are responsible for promoting and respecting human rights. The state is not only responsible for promoting and protecting your human right. You, as a part of the active member of the civil society, you will have to play an important role in the promotion and the protection of the human rights of the others. Okay, so these rights are not sectarian rights. These are the rights which go beyond any kind of the differences, barriers, and the discriminations. So how government can respect and protect and fulfill the human rights? Obviously, uh, government must not curtail the scope of the human right or interfere with the people exercising their right. Obviously, government should not intervene in the exercisation or in the performing certain activities which is a part of the human rights. Government can respect human rights by creating constitution guarantees, which we have, being a part of the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution guarantees certain amount of rights, which is a part of the fundamental rights. These fundamental rights are are laid down within the context with keeping in mind the consideration of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. Therefore, we are very fortunate enough that we have detailed detailed amount of human rights, which are fundamental rights from Article 12 to Article 35. Refraining from the limitation of the individual freedom unless absolutely necessary for the well-being of the society, providing ways for the people who have suffered human rights abuses by the government to seek legal remedies from domestic and international court, ratifying and implementing human rights treaties. For example, Universal Declaration of the Right opted by the United Nations General Assembly. It further approved by the United Nations Security Council, the highest organ of the United Nations, and then it was suggested, it was requested, it was ordered that every member of the United Nations should respect this document of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, and lay down certain amount of right under their constitution for the welfare of the people, for the promotion of these rights, for the realization of the human being, for the realization, for the enjoyment of the human rights to the people. So respect, protect, and fulfill. I'm not go into the detail in each and every one because we have less time. We have also many things to cover. So the idea that every person, regardless of their belief, background, or any other factor, is entitled to set of inalienable rights. So these inalienable rights are known as the human right, because without these kind of the rights, human survival is not possible. It is actually somewhat new. It might new, but these rights are always essential for the human being, and for having these rights, for promoting these rights, for there were lots of efforts made in our history for these human rights, which we have now in the context of the fundamental rights, or under UDHR. Although the concept of the human rights can be found throughout the history, from the Babylonian code of Hammurabi to the religious texts such as Bible and the Quran. It was not until the mid of the 20th century that human rights became a global concept. Now it is a global concept, and that because the atrocities of the Second World War were brought in the context of the need to establish the certain rights that all humans share. And now we have a great amount of the refugees. We had great amount of the child labor. We have great amount of the people, enslaved people in the in the human trafficking world. So we have multiple incident. We have multiple level of the human rights violations. So we should aware about what kind of right should everyone has, so we can make also make similar concern for the rights of others. If we are satisfying that we have all these rights, we do not bother about the rights of the other. This kind of the consideration, this kind of the concern, this kind of the attentions is not showing the active citizens of the democratic society. If you are live in a democratic society, you should act like an active member of the civil society, and being an active member of the civil society, you should have consciousness about what is your right, what is the rights of the other. So in the light, in the understanding of the basic in the understanding of the human right, you can protect, you can promote the rights of others. Thank you very much. Now the rest in the next part, which is need and importance of the human rights, we will cover in the next lectures. So in this lectures, in the meaning, nature, and scope of the human rights, I have mentioned, I have given to you what I have. So if any one of you having any kind of questions, you can ask. If anyone has any inquiry, any questions, you can ask in the chat box, so we can answer them. Anyone has any questions? I think nobody has questions regarding the human rights, or whatever we have learned and whatever we have covered in the first unit of the human rights. I hope you are very actively participated in this lecture, so you have got familiar each and everything. I think you do not have any confusion and questions. Okay, thank you very much for your kind presence, for your valuable participations, and I hope we will have many more lectures in which you will have many things to learn. And we expect the regularities. We have we expect the regular participation, active participation, for make this validated course successful. Thank you very much all.